Welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, along with Eric Garfield from the Florida Prospects Report. And Eric's going to be joining us each and every week, pretty much during the baseball season, as we talk prospects. And that hat, Eric, that's a pretty fancy hat. That's the
Thank you.
Delmarva Shorebirds hat.
This is one of the models from last year, yes, and I do think it's very good looking. It's the one I
Was
wear
it
to the stadium.
was that given to you by a player, or did you go up to Delmarva to buy that hat?
I did go up to Delmarva where it was given to me from a player. So I bought one and they gave me this one.
All right. Let's run down the business of these
Yes,
Zooms.
sir.
We are brought to you by AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning, and they've got a question for you, and it's a simple answer. What company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus free? Well, the answer would be AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. We're also brought to you by Superbook Sports, long a trusted name in Vegas. Now you can sign up in the state of Maryland and bet on sports legally by using this promo code Stan Charles 23 or my friend Glenn Clark 23, and you score their pretty nice offer, up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they'll match your first bet up to $250 with promo code StanCharles23 or Glenn Clark 23. No capitals needed, no spaces. It can be all lowercase, or it could be all uppercase. It's all one word with no spaces. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And I urge you to sign up so you can have some fun this summer betting on the O's and maybe taking advantage of betting these preseason props, the over-under on the win total. What's your win total, Eric, this year for the Orioles?
I believe that so far I am 5-1 of their 6-1.
No, no,
So
I
see a
mean,
lot of
what's your win total for the season? What do you think they'll win this? They won 101 last year. You think they're 96, 97, 93? What
I
do
think
you
it's going
think?
to be even closer to their total from last year. A very slight improvement, I would say, less than 105 and more than 101.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Um,
Good team.
all right. Yeah, they should be a real good team. By the way, I will have out my first mock preseason power rankings Monday. I put up today the divisions that I pick, and I'm picking us to finish behind the Yankees, but in
Oh,
front of Tampa, Toronto, and Boston. But I
oh.
do it with each division. Monday, I will have up the divisions in the National League along with my 1 through 30. And I'll tell you that the Orioles are in the top five. All right.
That's a little bit of a preview. I look forward to that. I've been reading it for quite a few years.
All right. We were going to talk. It's an interesting topic you came up with, and I give you full credit. You're saying we all of us know and there's going to be repetition on these shows where we're talking about a finite number of prospects, but we're going to
Right.
have, when the season really starts, we'll have all kinds of information on how they're performing. But the big prospects, Rutschman, Henderson, even Stowers, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but then Jackson Holiday, Kobe Mayo, those guys, everybody is kind of familiar with them. But now that they're graduating or very close to graduation, there's going to be a whole slew, maybe not as ballyhooed prospects, maybe not, they won't be number one, but there's going to be some really good major leaguers in amongst the players that we
Absolutely.
talk about tonight. So we're going to, they're names that people might be familiar with, but not as familiar with. And I thought we'd break it down, start with some offensive players. I know you know the names Judd Fabian and Dylan Beavers. They were drafted, not number one picks, but in the top 3 or 4 rounds, I
Yep.
believe. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about them, where they are, uh, what hand they hit with, and where they're going to play this year.
Okay. What to step back a second.
Yeah.
The system is going to look different. There's going to be a lot of first round pedigree types that have already graduated, the ones that you named. As the Orioles get better and better, their winning percentage gets higher and higher. The draft picks get a little later. Bradfield is good, but he was picked with 17th. So it's going to be a whole different type of
Yep.
player.
Sure.
But if you draft well and draft smart, Judd Fabian was rumored to be a first round type of pick. The Orioles got him in a non first round. So he's a more of a center field. I don't want to call him a slap hitter, but he's not an over the fence type hitter just yet. He might prove to be, but he's an outstanding defender, perfect routes, great pivot, great arm. He's a center field type, but I don't think he's overall as good at baseball, impacting the ball and being an athlete as his partner in right field, Dylan Beavers. He made a great running catch the other day. I didn't have my camera out, so it was really just he looked like Mike Devereaux, measuring the steps, you know, realizing where he was on the warning track, catching, pivot, and turn right back in. That's the kind of play that he makes very consistently. Fabian is about 6'1.5", a little taller than 6 feet. Beavers is tall. Beavers is 6'4",
Is
tall and long, and kind of like a California type of guy.
is Fabian right-handed and Beavers is left-handed, if I
Correct and
recall?
correct.
Okay. Do, in your estimation, somebody who it sounds to me like you're saying that Judd Fabian is an amazing athlete.
Yep.
Do those athletes, and I remember Kirk Gibson was an
Okay.
amazing athlete, great football player too, I
Yep.
think at Michigan or Michigan State.
They
But his baseball skills weren't refined. He was a raw athlete. I'm not saying that Judd Fabian can he be Kirk Gibson, but can those kind of players ever get the baseball thing a little bit more and use that athleticism?
I do not know why Fabian wasn't picked in the first round. He was a high pedigree type of college athlete, very mature in his game. So those skills are sharp. The Ori When the name players graduate the system, I think Beavers and Fabian, I don't know if they're going to be neck and neck for number one, but you're going to see a very different and varied skill set climbing to the single digit rankings for the Orioles prospects. Those two should be battling for that type of position. And their development is kind of in line with each other. So as each goes to a new affiliate, it's not like one is way more mature or way more better. They're kind of like the same age, the same developmental point for both of them. So they should be kind of partners in development for a season or 2 seasons.
Eric, you've gotten to know some of these guys. They genuinely ball players that are like the same age and going up together. They don't they're competing, obviously. Of course, Judd Fabian wants to be the best he can be, and Dylan Beavers wants to be, but they like each other, right? They're buddies and they're close.
I'm going to say those two are not, they are definitely close and they are definitely good friends. And you can see the way when they play next to each other that they're competing, but more of the time you can see that they like each other and like being teammates. So overall, that kind of mentality is very positive for the system. There's a lot of guys that are competing with each other
Sure.
for one spot.
Yep.
Cowser and Kersted's a great example. So they're extremely close friends. But the mentality is we want to get better individually. Let the front office pick the spots where we're going to play.
Tell me, where do you think those two players will play this year? Do they start off at Bowie or are they jumping to AAA this year to begin with?
That's a tough call, but I did use the word mature to talk about their games. I don't know if they have what meets the Orioles' amount of experience to be at AAA, but they might just be too good to be at AA. So it could go either way. I'd
Right.
say 50-50 on both of them, but I'm confident that each of those players will end the season at AAA.
All right. A couple more players on the offensive side of things. And we do want to fit in a brief couple words about Kyle Stowers because we talked about him 2 weeks ago as a player that needed to kind of reset and regain some career momentum and build some value, both
He's
for
doing it.
himself and for the club to be able, if he doesn't have room here, but all of a sudden he has a monster spring, suddenly he becomes a trade chip. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen different in Stowers. Is it just maybe the nerves aren't there as much?
The difference is so slight. It's so slight, but it's showing his OPS after today. He had a home run this afternoon.
Yeah,
It's 1.058 OPS.
right.
He is still swinging and missing at pitches in the strike zone, but he's not doing it for strike three. He's doing it for strike one or strike two. So he's not ruining his at bats. Somehow they're still lasting longer. He shouldn't even be swinging at these pitches, but in the small sample size of the first 2 spring weeks, he is making contact and it's loud. The home run today, I haven't looked at any data, but I'm going to estimate it is the hardest ball that the Orioles hit. And Mateo had 2 long home runs of his own, and
Yeah.
Jackson Holiday laced a triple also. So I think that Stowers is kind of creeping back into the Kerstead and Cowser tier of maybe he will go north when the season starts. The person that should not be comfortable with all this discussion is Ryan McKenna.
Yeah, no question about it. And Brandon likes him. There's no question about
I
it
like him too.
because he trusts him. But basically, these other guys are better ball players.
It might
But
just be too good.
but Ryan is such that his value is that you're not ruining his career by him sitting in the major leagues. Whereas with Kerstead and Cowser, you want them up if
Playing.
they're going to play. If
Yep.
they're going to play. Tell me a little bit about. You mentioned him about 10 days ago that originally you didn't like him that much, but you've grown to respect the catcher, Maverick Hanley. Let's include him in this batch, and along with a college third baseman named Max Wagner. Did he
Yeah.
play at Clemson? Was it?
Wagner was the Orioles' second round pick, and yes, he went to Clemson. So I think the profile that he was expected to develop into when they picked him, even though it was after one real impact year in college, the year before really didn't play that much. Then he had a great year. Orioles draft him high. There was a lot of question with people that I talked to of if they should have done that.
Yep.
I guess the Orioles' response is, well, he's a corner man with power. So far through the low and mid minors, he has not proven to be a corner with power. He's proven to be a corner who gets on base slightly below average, but steals a lot. I don't think that's what the Orioles
Yeah, had
even
in
want
mind.
now.
Yeah.
So he needs to, for this season, I don't know if they're looking at his strikeouts and walks. When he makes contact, he needs to drive the ball for extra base hits, or else it's looking like his development might be askew. So
Is he a start at Aberdeen so you can really get his feet under him, or do they jump him? It doesn't sound like he's really ready for Double A.
it doesn't, but there's other factors involved. And I don't want to say the Orioles or the people that make these decisions are egotistical, but if this guy at this age, at this
Hey,
year goes to Aberdeen, it's going
hey,
to
I
look like a
watched
loss already.
I watched the Ravens for years with Ozzie and Eric, and some players that they draft, they stick with them longer than they should because they feel that their name is on the line a little bit.
I,
Uh,
I,
go
I
ahead.
think I think that's a very, very smart and intelligent way to look at it. I think the Orioles are going to do that because of where his pick was. I think he was the 42nd
Yeah,
overall pick.
yeah, he
So
was
he's
a
going to get some chances regardless of how not good his statistics look. But the positive is he's not a first round pick. So it's not a like a live or die type of endeavor no matter
yeah.
what.
Earl Weaver had an old saying about that. I gave you more chances than I gave my second wife.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
Maverick Hanley. Let's go over it again. What were you
Right.
concerned about when you said 2 months ago or something?
Okay.
I'm not that crazy about him. And now you've grown. Is it the defense or his offense or both?
It's a lot of both, but it's really the athleticism. what I saw before, he doesn't fit that catcher physical profile. He's not big, he's not wide, he's not particularly big shouldered at all. So I just wondered, can he hold up to a job where he squat 20,000 times a day? And so far, it's years later, he looks like athletically his movements, his pivots, his hip opening and turns, his blocking, his squatting, blocking, and standing have all looked much faster on video. So he
Any
looks to
idea?
be.
Any idea? I know ultimately it's hard work on his part. Is there somebody guiding that work that you can pinpoint?
I haven't. I'm the way it looks. It's not like he's now looks like a bodybuilder, but he's moving kind of like a running back type of athlete. So I'm going to estimate he went to one of those off-season training type of
Training
gyms where
facilities.
where they refine the movements and they rep, and it's kind of like unique workouts that only apply to baseball or his position. I'm telling you, his hips look the best in the team, better than even a pitcher. So he's taken it to the field. He's gotten hits in rallies. He's gotten hits off major league pitchers. So you really have to take in all the evidence and start looking at things a little bit differently. He's raised his game and raised his athleticism. Even if it doesn't end up meaning anything, you have to give a guy credit like that
Yeah. Let
for
me
that.
ask you a question. A lot of players now do the off season. They go to facilities that high level, teaching facilities and workout facilities. Do you know, does the player, unless the club says we want you to go specifically to this place, they'll pay for that. But if a guy like Hanley, is he paying for that out of his own pocket?
It This is another thing. It's so baseball culture-ish. A lot
Yeah.
of times a coach or an instructor will lose his job with the Orioles or the
Yep.
Twins, and
Yep.
he'll go coach at Driveline or Tread. And sometimes it's someone that has a great relationship with Mav and actually would care about him being better. So
Yeah.
those type of things are so behind the scenes. It really depends on the situation. Overall, I am totally in favor of all of these athletes getting as much individual
No
instruction
question
as they
about it.
can.
But even in a case like that where somebody might be familiar with Maverick, he's got to bring players in that pay money to keep the facility profitable, correct?
Sometimes you would think that, but sometimes they're retired athletes or baseball players that have
Okay.
millions of dollars in the bank. So is Mavs $5,600 in a summer that they don't get really making or breaking their business? You know, I, there's everyone
Okay.
is compensated in the get better at baseball type of game.
All right. Wanted to ask you about one international player that we both kind of talked about, Frederick Bencosme. He's an international signing from the
Yep,
Orioles from a couple of years back.
yep,
And you like where he's heading. You're
yep.
not head over heels about the guy, but you think he's making some improvements that have been noticeable for you.
Out of all the players that Luke and I discuss, he's probably number one. And we both kind of have the same opinion of him. He's shown offensive skill, he's shown innate barrel ability. He can touch the ball with the good part of the bat, but he has always been so skinny, like truly rail skinny, almost too skinny for his uniform to stay up. And I am not exaggerating. When I talked to him after the game on Tuesday, I saw Freddie's gained significant weight, upper body and lower body. And when I talked to him, he said, "I'm ready for what the Orioles are putting in front of me, and it is a lot. They're asking a lot of me this year. I didn't travel down to Fort Myers yesterday, but he got his first spring hit. So this is a hitter, and this is someone that should get many chances. He's
Is
still
he
young and
is
he
he a
costs ten
middle
thousand bucks.
middle infielder, second short?
Right. Those are really the only positions that he can play well. I think the way that he stands and his posture, the way that he can go laterally, shortstop is really not that much of a challenge for him. But what I've seen, he handles the ball better and makes less errors at second. So there's positives for him at both positions.
The errors, that's an interesting point. Were the errors at short throwing the ball?
Yes, and they were rushing. And
Yep.
where do I plant my feet?
Yep.
You know, I,
Yep.
I saw him throw it away often at the FCL, and I thought when he gets into the low minors, the affiliates, this will improve pretty quickly. It kind of hasn't. So he might end up just being a second baseman by default.
Eric, how old is he? Is he a right-handed hitter, left-handed hitter, switch hitter? And where do you think he'll play this year?
No, I think he's just turned 21. He throws right, bats left, I think, and I also believe that he will. Oof, he's not going to Delmarva, so he's playing in Major League spring training games. He's already played in three, so
So he's
he,
Aberdeen?
yeah, I'm gonna say he's gonna go to Aberdeen and be in their top three in overall at bats over the course of the season,
Let me
or
t
regular.
All right. Let me tell people a little bit about the Costas Inn. It's old hat to you, but the Costas Inn is one of our favorite places at Press Box, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. They are just an extraordinary restaurant, family owned. They've been in the same location for over 50 years. The Triantafilos family have been over there. And Nick and Pete are my buddies. I've known them since the mid 90s. They've supported me in everything I've done, so I support them wholeheartedly. They're a great crab house. Give them a call at 410-477-1975 and map out your plan. Find out the availability, price point, and size of the crabs. If not, if crabs aren't your thing, they got great crab cakes, specials every weeknight, and a great place for steaks, fish, just a super place, the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. You can check their menu out online at costasin.com. And if you want to do carry out, you can order your food online, pay for it online, and you don't even have to get out and really go into the restaurant. They'll bring the food out to your car, and it's always packed immaculately. I mean, they just don't miss a beat at the Costas Inn, one of my favorite places, and I know it will be one of yours. Eric, now we move over to the pitchers in our remaining time today. Tell me a little bit about tell me a little bit about Carter Baumler and where he stands right now. We've talked about him a little bit a couple times, but I want to hear where's he? He's coming back from a Tommy John surgery.
Okay, so I don't really like to delve into people's personal information or their health. So
Yep.
I haven't been able to get a lot of information from him or see him in action. Today at the Orioles game, we saw each other and had a brief conversation. He used the term, I'm back. And when I told him that I plan on going to minor league camp at Twin Lakes, he said, I'll be there. And I said, we'd be like pitching in games and games that matter. He said, absolutely yes. So I don't want to say lift off or all systems go, but it looks like Carter Baumler is back. And when we've discussed him in the past, we discussed him as a high skill, high upside guy. So I don't know exactly what his schedule is going to be, but if he's back and he's healthy, Oriole fans will hear a lot about Carter Ballmer, and it's looking right now that that's the case.
You think he starts the season when he gets to play, play at organized ball? You think he starts at Aberdeen with a chance to end the season at Bowie this year, or is that even a little too advanced for him?
Okay, so it's all going to depend on what they want. Is very specific with the Orioles:
Yeah,
innings load and overall pitch load. I actually think because he's coming back and he hasn't been in games, that when the season starts, he might stay here in extended spring training
right.
just to go through a turn or two turns in the rotation.
Build himself up without the pressure of being actually competing.
Right. And when you use that term, he looked great. He looked in outstanding shape when I talked to him. But a couple turns through the rotation, and then, yeah, send him to Aberdeen. And if he does well there, maybe the highest minor league level. He might be able to hit every level if he can pitch well and keep his pitches per appearance and his innings exactly where the Orioles want, with an eye on making the team next
Yeah.
season. So
He's a
he's going
guy
to
who
climb.
could come. He's a guy who could come fast. With
Yes,
what
that's what I'm
you
trying to say.
with what you've observed so far, and you've observed some of these guys coming back from Tommy John, do you think the goal this year would be like 80, 90 innings,
Yep,
somewhere in that
exactly.
ballpark total?
No less than 68 and definitely no more than 90. So they have to be the right innings. He can't get lit up that many appearances or else it's going to throw everything
Yeah,
off track. But if
yeah,
he's the Carter Bomber we think of, that won't be an issue.
yeah. And if he
Very,
gets
very
to, if he's able to do 90 this year, sounds like the following year could be like 125, 130 in that range. And then all systems are really go.
very reasonable.
Tell me a little bit about another guy coming back from Tommy John surgery. Had it a little earlier, I think, than he had his TJ surgery in 22.
22.
He was the other guy picked up in the Bundy trade, Kyle Brinovich,
Yep.
who I know was Kyle Bradish was probably what they really wanted out of that deal, but they
Yep.
didn't trade Bundy just for one guy. They got
Right.
four pitchers, and I think Brinovich was the second best pitcher in the deal.
It's debatable, but he probably has the best overall best pitch out of all of them. He has a true 12-6 hook. And he pitched the other day. It didn't go well. He pitched 3 innings, but he threw that pitch more than once for strikes. And you could see that it's been under wraps. But when he gets intense and when he gets up to game speed, that is a beautiful spinner. If he can't do much more than that, he's going to be like a one bullet type of bullpen guy.
Mhm.
And that might not be what the Orioles traded for. But that's his true weapon. So we'll see if he can set that up and use it at 2 strikes or use it to get hitters in bad counts and then go from there. So overall, it was really good to see him in a high level game facing pretty solid opponents to close out a spring game. Stats be damned.
26 years old now,
Days old.
still a prospect, even though the delay with the Tommy John injury.
Yeah, he still has a career, and if the Orioles thought nothing of him, they wouldn't be using him in these spots. So I don't want to say his prospect status is on life support, but he's going to need to start doing something, to start moving
Yeah,
forward.
I
So
got you.
this was a good first step towards that. I am definitely rooting for Kyle Brnovich.
And Brinovich and Carter Baumler are both right-handed pitchers, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Garrett Stallings was picked up in that Jose Iglesias
Iglesias.
trade, also with the Angels. A prospect?
I have to say I think so. He's got a good slider. He pitches, it's more than one pitch. His fastball is fine. Everything about his fastball profile is usable, but he's got a tight slider. That two usable pitches, good enough endurance. Oddly enough, he is currently the Orioles' leading innings pitcher this spring with 3. They've been pretty good innings, and one of them was against he got 3 outs against the front half of a major league lineup. So AAA experience. He's been developed for 3 or 4 seasons. The two pitches, it doesn't scream ace, but it might be a number 4 or 5 starter or a swingman eventually on a contender. We'll have to see. He'll go to Norfolk when the season starts, and if he's dominant, they're going to find a place for him. They like him.
Is that where Brinovich is well? Is it AAA? Or
That will be decided by the exhibition games, and if he starts to have success, then
okay.
yes. If he doesn't, then it'll probably be the Bay Sox.
All right, got two more names for you before we close it out. Ryan
Okay.
Long, he's a aptly named Long, right? Isn't he about a 6'5", 6'6" guy?
Long is very tall, so yeah, he's pretty big. And we were talking before about players doing workouts and stuff in the off season. He had a decent season last year. I think his highest uh, miles per hour was between 92 and 93. He went to Tread Athletics, I believe, on the West
Mm-hmm.
Coast. Struck out Tamar Johnson the other day with a high fastball that was 96.7. So it might not seem might not seem absolute value wise that that's a big jump, but baseball wise,
That's
you're doing a whole lot more controlling the strike zone when you
yeah.
can hit the high 90s. You don't have to be so precision with where it ends up when you're throwing 91 or 92. So yeah, Ryan is he's a big guy. He might even be like 6'6" or 6'7", and he's a different kind of unique athlete. But when the lights are on and he's angry, if he can get it to 96 and above, we're gonna have to start paying a lot more attention to Ryan Long, other than he's just tall.
How old is Long? Is he a right-handed pitcher, and is he a starting pitcher in your estimation, or could be a really good kind of swing man, late inning guy?
Okay, that I think he's 22, turning 23. By the way, I checked. I was right on Ben Cosme. I think he's 22, turning 23, but he he has enough endurance and his arsenal goes four deep. So it wouldn't be ideal to have somebody with that particular profile coming out of the pen. You want him getting your first 15 plus outs. So four pitches deep, I say starter.
Starter. And
Yep.
where's he this year? Bowie?
Uh, Probably another guy whose decision hasn't been made yet. So exhibition games,
Okay.
depending on who he's facing and how dominant he is, could determine triple or double A for Long. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say he does well and he goes to triple A.
Okay. I got one more for you. Last year, I went to Bowie for a game to see Kobe Mayo over there, and he hit a home. He had actually two home runs, but I missed the second one because we left. It was kind of a little bit of a blowout game, I
You want
think.
to make
But
that
anyway,
mistake?
the pitcher that night for Bowie was a guy that impressed me, and it sounds like he's opened some eyes in the organization. That's Alex Pham.
Yep. I want to say the thing that has always caught my eye when watching him and studying him and filming him is his delivery is, they use the word repeatable.
Yeah.
His extremely repeatable down to every motion except the hand and wrist upon release. He is like a jump shooter who has practiced hundreds of thousands of shots. It's just the same every time. He also has, like Long, a decent mix. He can go four deep now that he's throwing a changeup. He's not the kind of guy that's going to blow you away. 92 is going to be his ceiling, but his movement patterns are multiple. He's got cut, he's got run, he's got spin down on a curveball. All of those he uses very effectively. He does. I want to say, for a guy that's ended up walking people, his strike to ball ratio is not horrific. So a little, he's already done good and he's done well, and he's gotten into a couple spring games. So a little bit of twinge, a little bit of change in that strike to ball ratio, and he could be a name to follow, and also somebody who's got like major league bullpen type of upside. Him, I see as probably a pen guy, a true out getting specialist.
And you see him at AAA this year?
Yeah, I want to say he's earned it, and he's at the age slash development stage where it should be AAA. Yes.
And you think he's another guy, we touched on this. There are some of these pitchers that we're talking about tonight and the ones we talked about last week that are going to benefit, that Chris Holt is solely into development now. He's not at the major league level. He's supervising these guys and
Yep.
trying to polish them to be ready for the big leagues.
In an interview, Justin Armbruster, another one of these starters who's close, talked last week about everybody has a different plan. When we come to work, we don't all start out doing the same thing,
Hmm.
but and we don't do the same thing during the day. But the goal is to be better at pitching one day at a time. And what my brain went to right away was, well, I know the person that's making those plans. That's why they're so good. And that's why the pitchers end up so good. That's Chris Holt. So
Yeah.
I don't think of it as a demotion, like he's not the pitching
Right.
coach
Right.
anymore, so
I
he
think it's
doesn't
the
matter.
organization is trying to get better at developing the arms that they have now. Yeah,
I actually think his role is now even more important than it was.
I agree. I agree. Last thing I got for you. You were at Ed Smith today, weren't you?
I was. Busy day
And
today.
did you
Paul
see
Skeens versus
did you
Corbin
see
Burns.
Paul Skeens?
I did. Yep.
Pitched one inning, right?
Yep. I think the more
Impressions? Impressions?
well, he is not my favorite prospect. I love the Pirates. I don't think I'd ever pick any pitcher first overall, no matter who they are, not even Steven Strasburg.
Right.
Nope, I just wouldn't do it. And his stuff doesn't jump and dart around as much as I think a pitching specific team like the O's or the Rays or the Dodgers would be satisfied with. He hit 102 today twice, but he didn't have any strikeouts. He really didn't look like he was altering players' eye levels. So I think he's good. And there's going to be a point where he maxes out between 30 and 80 starts. His peak might last 2 years or 3 years, and it probably is going to be pretty good, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there from a lot of people. And I would just rather draft a pitcher in the third or fourth round, something like that. He looks
I don't
okay. He looks pretty good.
I don't want to
Don't get me
turn
wrong.
we're short on time now. I don't want to turn it into a Pirates fest. I loved Henry Davis
Me too.
when he was draftable and sort of wanted the Orioles I hoped he had ended up with the Orioles. How's he look to you, the catcher?
Henry looks outstanding. He hit a 3-run home run off a tough, biting, downward pitch from Corbin Burns, and he got lift on this thing. So you talk about Paul Skeens, you talk about Tamar, Brian Reynolds, all these guys. Henry is their leader. The dugout erupted when he went down into it. He is the guy who's focused, who's serious. It's a perfect setup for them. He's the signal caller, he's the organization's quarterback, and a lot of people are down on Henry. They should not be down on Henry.
All right. He is at Eric underscore Birdland. All right. Excuse me, at Eric underscore Birdland.
That's
That's
it.
where you can find all of his posts. He's going to link to this on there as well. We appreciate it, Eric. We'll look forward to talking to you when I'm in town next week. All right.
We got to figure
Great
out what we're
stuff.
going to do.
Great stuff today. Again, at Eric underscore Birdland, getting amazing views on his videos. And he's been a really good resource for us at Pressbox. Look forward to working with you. All right. Talk
Same to
soon.
you.
All right. Again, for the Costas Inn, for AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning, and our friends at Superbook Sports with that opening, when you sign up, $250 first bet bonus match using either my name, Stan Charles 23, or Glenn Clark 23. It's a great way to start with a free bet of up to $250 with Superbook Sports. Bye for now.